And I'm live. Welcome to the Will Studios. I'm gonna do my own little self-audio check here. Testing. Okay, so that works out pretty well. At like 55%. Anywho. On Drawn Release, I watched Obi-Wan. I never gave a shit about the Star Wars movies after they started remaking them in the 90s, to be honest. There's a ton of love nowadays for the prequels, which I think is hilarious, because I was definitely on the hate train with those movies. Midichlorians, you know what I mean? Like, the first movie was just about perfect. Second movie was great. The third movie stuck the landing. Jedi had its moments. Jedi had its, like, you know, kind of what the fuck are we doing? We got Care Bear cousins in space. But now, I should go on I've talked about Star Wars before in other streams that nobody watched, and I suffer from a mental illness where I love my own headcanon. When I saw Star Wars and they mentioned, oh, your father, Clone Wars, blah, 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 I thought the prequels would start with Anakin as a man. And I stand by that it should have. The first movie, Anakin should have been grown already. They could have taken the whole trilogy to show his turn to the dark side. Instead, they wasted the whole first film explaining how he was recruited as a child into the Jedi. And now, in the Disney Star Wars universe, they're basically portraying the Jedi as child abductors who go around the universe looking for Force-sensitive children and indoctrinating them into their police force. Okay? That was never Star Wars as far as I was concerned. Like, freaking when you heard about the Jedi in the original movie, they mention how it was part of a religion. There was a lot of, like, mysticism about it. Sorry, it's like I start drawing. I have to draw. But I also want to, like, talk about... I tell you what. And I was thinking about this before. Is just drawing little, like, cartoon versions of the characters, you know? Like, give Kenobi one of these. And that way, instead of, like, drawing the, instead of showing clips or whatever, I would just draw, like, what happens. That's a stupid idea. I'll just save my Kenobi commentary for the Kenobi review. Somebody's gonna tune into this eventually, right? I got at least like one view on everything. They'll witness my indecision on what I need to be working on, what I need to be doing. I decided that Silver would have muscles. Earlier on I had him, he had like sleeves, but he needs muscles. And yeah, we can talk about Kenobi, because Kenobi was, for the most part, universally hated in like the fandom, in the YouTube circles that I run in, because like I haven't bothered really watching much Disney Star Wars at all. It always just seems like kids playing cosplay. Like, Star Wars is never going to mean as much to this generation as it did to previous generations. That's just a fact. That's just something that Disney, like, needs to get a grasp on. That the real, like, hardcore audience for Star Wars are in their 40s or 50s. Maybe 30s, but definitely not 20s. Because that's when Star Wars was like a cultural phenomenon. See, this is where I'm like, I might have to redraw this whole panel, which is fine, because it's a kind of a nothing panel, to be honest. Very slow commentary about Kenobi this episode. Skipping through the freaking YouTube playlist. I can't freaking skip anymore. Can I like fast forward to the end? Nothing else pops up, really? Damn. I'm at the end of the YouTube radio. Might be a short live stream, might cut it off due to technical issues. So now that I'm giving him muscles, I have to actually think through the form a little bit. Because I'll be honest, I started drawing this before I was super set on some of the character designs. And I realized that's like opposite of the way most people approach creating a comic book. Because there's usually a writer who is working with an artist who will okay the character designs. I'm not going to call this like a Kenobi review. I'm just going to say that's going to be the general topic of conversation right now. And anyone who decides to turn this on as like background noise or something, if maybe they just want to watch me draw, like, don't expect like a review. I'll put together a review at some point. I want to like watch the show and take screenshots, and that way I'll have a good visual to show to show. And it's not going to be dependent on my drawing, and I'll be able to just like talk and not split my attention so much, because I do a lot of like rambling. I do a lot of getting my thoughts together, not having any notes, not having any preparation of any kind, and just sort of launching into how, oh, this was kind of awkward, here's how this could have been better, blah, blah, blah. I finally got a comment on one of my videos, and it was like, hey, I expected this to be more of a review. Which, I went back and watched the episode a little bit. I didn't have the patience to sit through it, because I'm like, you know, once again, like, no notes, getting my thoughts together, randomly talking about my own comic book in the middle of it, blah, blah, blah. Like, it does need to be more of a review. Because I thought about it, and I'm like, I did provide plenty of feedback, right? Because I said it needed a better hook in the beginning. You need to show me what's, like, unique about your story. And I said that sort of the whiz-bang fight scenes are not really working anymore. We got to evolve. We got to kick up our game here in America when it comes to fight scenes. Because, like, the tension of the fight is that between the blows. In a lot of the manga and stuff that you read, and they're really able to give each punch, like, impact. Where, in the independent comic book space, you have some really bad examples of action, like in ISOM, where you don't ever even see the impact. And there's, like, no tension in the fights whatsoever. And then you have Blood and the Sword, where it is like freaking, there needs to be more continuity frame by frame with the fight, and it needs to be comprehensible to the reader so that they can kind of be in the action, so that they can feel the action more. And that puts a lot of pressure on the artist, on the writer, whatever, to really come up with and choreograph good fight scenes. But even if you read mainstream stuff, like if I open up a comic book near me and flip it open, I'm not going to find, like, a nail biting, like, you know, maybe nail biting's a freaking corny way of saying it, but, you know, if I pulled up an issue of Hajime no Ippo, the boxing manga that I used to read, you're like on the edge of your seat with some of these fights, and you really want to see what happens next. Whereas in American comic books, you'll get like a cool visual with them using their powers or whatever, but I always felt like Superman didn't know how to fight. Not really. I never got the impression from the way his punches looked. And they had a variety of artists. You're not always going to get an artist who is great at fight scenes. Especially with the amount of detail that tends to be in Western comics versus Eastern comics. Because the manga having more of a animated quality to it, being like a somewhat simpler art style, at least when it comes to the face and that sort of thing, because they're making it with the intention of it being animated, and for the animation to be as close to the original as possible. I can't even tell if I have any viewers. There we go. 0 viewers. Perfect. Where was I, though? Oh, yeah. So the review that I did. So I'm like, there's plenty of, like, feedback. I mentioned the dialogue needed to be punched up, needed to be, you know, when you're writing a fantasy story, when you're introducing like a fantasy world, you should look for opportunities to immerse your reader in the setting. And definitely could have spent more time on the dialogue. And then I find out that, oh, he made the comic book with his 6-year-old kid. Like, okay, well, that's not how it was, like, sold to me. And I guess that sort of explains things. I'm just not going to get issue 2. You know, I'm going to leave him alone. Because Richard Embry, the guy who put his name on the book and wrote it, and is just in, like, I'm following him or whatever. So I guess maybe because I only follow a few people, he just shows up in my timeline a lot, like interacting with the Rippaverse drama and stuff. I'll just leave him alone. I'll just pass on issue 2, and that'll be the end of it. Unless we have another interaction, because I friggin' bought the first one. I was thinking about it because of the price, and then I read the first page and just decided, because he put the first page out for free. And then I bought it because I decided I was going to review an indie comic for the channel. And I picked his, and then it's like, oh man, am I stepping on toes if I start doing that shit? I bought a digital copy of Ryan Longbox's comic book, and I kind of already know I'm going to hate it. But we'll see. Maybe he'll surprise me. It seems terrible, because it seemed he made a sort of generic looking hero. It looks like a City of Heroes creation. I played City of Heroes, so when I see a character, it's hard for me not to imagine it just being a random dude in City of Heroes flying around doing whatever. So it's like you gotta put extra effort into making them look unique. But hopefully that arrives any day now. I thought it said August. August is almost up. I haven't gotten any emails, but I bought like the $6 digital copy of that one. I think I will review it. I'll review it, you know, And it's like, if it sucks, and he'll find out. Because, people need to hear it. Okay? And if my comic book sucks, I hope somebody tells me. And I thanked that dude for telling me that he expected more of a review. Because I need to tighten this shit up. The live streams, I'm not going to stress about. The live streams, I'll let myself kind of ramble. And anybody who tunes in can kind of know what they're getting into. I'm much better if I can get some interaction. Because I'll talk about whatever with an audience. But none of my followers are on YouTube at 1:41 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. That's looking better. That looks better than that. For sure. I was hesitant to do the vacuumed muscle look on anybody. But it just looks badass. I like it. It's fun to look at. It's more fun to look at than sleeves. And that's like the current, American comic books are kind of trending a little bit more towards realism, where people are wearing, like, jackets again and shit. Like, nah, dude, I think you guys are missing the point. We all are gay, and we like to look at men's bodies through spandex. That's all it is. And you have to let us have this. And don't ask us about it. I was watching Trashcast, and Ethan Van Sciver's giving Mike Smiller grief about drawing, like, just very homoerotic, like, men, shirtless men in his comic books. Like, he'll always find a way to work one in. I'm like, dude, of course. Is that not why you're here? Here, I'm just kind of mapping out where the dark spots are going to kind of be, like, roughly. And for that, I'm kind of thinking about, like, where's the meat and bone of the hand going to be? Now, this guy's, like, supposed to be a robot, but he's modeled after a human being. So it's kind of like a Westworld android in a way. Oh, goodness. It's a tough one to ponder. Is it even? I don't know. Did like bigger blobs maybe? It's okay. These live streams, you get to watch a genius at work just toiling away. Can I pay someone to like sit in my chat? Is that a thing? I could get someone to swing by and just be like, draw a dick. No. Like, how about that, Fantastic Four? I can be like, Pedro Pascal, come on. And you're like, I know, right? The hell does that guy think he can just play anybody? He's gonna walk in, just a little role getter. Yeah, man, he gets roles. Son of a bitch. Aren't you the Mandalorian? You're what's his face from The Last of Us? which I never even played the video game. I heard the video game was pretty good. The first one, anyway. That's the thing about being an artist is sometimes I'm sitting here and like I know how to draw things, but then I'm like silver hands. I'm supposed to draw silver hands. Back to Kenobi, though. Kenobi was okay. But just okay. I forgive some of it. Some of it is just goddamn, like... The whole chase scene. So one of the most criticized portions of that show is the very first episode. Leia gets kidnapped. Right? Obi-Wan is on Tatooine. He lost Anakin to the dark side. He's feeling bad about himself a little bit, but he's on his mission to protect the boy there on Tatooine. And Leia is living the life of a princess who is accepted by, her dad's like a good guy, but then parts of, her extended family is like, you're not even an Organa, really, blah, 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 blah. And she, like, uses her connection to the Force to read his mind or something. Her, like, snotty cousin is talking shit. And she has a habit of running around in fields. They established this early. And one day she's running around in her fields and she gets surrounded by alien human traffickers. Okay? One of them is a green lady. None of these aliens can keep up with this 7-year-old. Okay? Which is complete baloney. But I'll forgive that part. The really perplexing part is when the green one, they're both right behind her. The green one veers off uphill. And then I'm like, what's going to happen? Like, is she going to jump down off a ledge maybe in front of Leia or something? But what happens is that later on, when the other alien is chasing Leia and failing, she just comes out and joins again. So she literally left for zero reason. Didn't do anything at all. It was very confusing. The whole thing was just like, they should have just had him capture her immediately and skipped the chase scene. But they need to fill time. Some of this stuff, they're just filling time. You know? Gotta stop doing that shit. Going back and listening to myself, I realize some of my bad and saying some of my bad, some of my things I shouldn't be doing on stream. Like, Yeah, that chase scene was terrible. I only saw the first episode because I was made to sit still yesterday, and I thought to do it. I'm probably not even going to watch the second episode, honestly. Like, I don't care. It ain't real Star Wars. It's Disney crap. It's a freaking live action roller coaster ad, basically. It's a come to our shops or back to the theme park, advertisement, essentially. And the whole thing's just becoming kind of cringy and dumb. Like, the more popular something becomes, the less I'm interested. And Star Wars, I don't even think I was ever, like, really a fan. I thought lightsabers were awesome. Because they were. But after seeing videos of people with lightsabers and meeting people in real life swinging lightsabers around, I just no longer want to own one. I just don't. I feel like we're just activating the insect part of our brain that's attracted to lights when we're doing that, when we're playing with lightsabers. And you know what? I think that if I make this arm a little longer, I could get away with not even drawing that hand. And it would make sense because this other arm is so big. And so that actually looks better than it did before. And it spares me the agony of drawing those hands. I will eventually have drawn them enough where I'll just freaking get them out. And I do think I'm settling on sort of some like darker patches, but he's going to be like hashed out. Because the light will reflect a little bit and then sort of diffuse along the metallic colored coating that he's got on. But yeah, serious problems with Obi-Wan. They have him, in order to survive on Tatooine, Obi-Wan works at a meat cutting facility where meat is cut and packaged and presumably shipped. And he's in the desert. It's like an open, like there's no ceiling. They're not in a facility. There's just a conveyor belt in the desert. I'll be honest, I was eating, so I might not have been paying attention, but I seem to recall they were basically carving up some beast that was out there. But anyway, like, they do the typical, like, factory in a TV show thing where foreman calls for the shift to be over or whatever, and they all just sort of, like, drop their shit and start moving to the exit or whatever to get their money. And then one dude does like an Oliver Twist where he's like, well, this isn't enough money. I have a family. And he's like, you want more? And he just like smacks him. Just smacks the dude. He's like, fuck off, you. Take it or don't. Nah. It's like, did he just do that to that dude and not everybody? I don't know. Maybe everyone else kept their mouth shut when he shorted them. But they just leave the meat on the conveyor belt. I'm like, that's good meat, dude. Like, if we're in a capitalist society, that's waste. That carcass ain't gonna last forever out there in the desert. And so the meat's just gonna be rotting. Or do they not have refrigeration in Star Wars? They must have, right? Do you think they mastered space travel before refrigeration? Does the meat not spoil in Star Wars? But I definitely got the vibe just from that scene, from any of the scenes where he's chopping meat in the factory. I'm like, because he'll steal a little piece and like smuggle it out every day so that he has something to eat. Like, that shouldn't be allowed. The type of day shift manager who would beat the shit out of a dude after shorting him money for no good reason, no explainable reason, is not the guy who's gonna let you get away with stealing. And you can be like, oh, but Obi-Wan's a Jedi. He knows that no one's looking. I'm like, well, he shouldn't be stealing. You should know better than to do that. Obi-Wan, come on. But Ewan McGregor's good, so I'm not really mad at anything that happens when he's on screen. So much easier to do this, like, on these muscles. I think that'll be a good place to cut this one off while I still have 0 viewers. Thanks for tuning in. eventual future viewers. Oh, shoot, I didn't even have the light on, did I? I've had mood lighting this whole time. But yeah.